You boys know what's about to happen to you. You'd leave now.
Some consider these traits to be toxic, such as undesirable in the men of today. We consider these traits such as these not only to be desirable, but to be appreciated and celebrated. Welcome to the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, hosted by and La Reina Creole. Welcome to the safe space for the toxic male.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toxic Male Appreciation Show with your host. I am the Reina Creole, and my co-host here is How are you doing, my dear?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you today, Lorena?
I'm doing great. A long Easter weekend is about to start, and I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to a blessed and very relaxed long weekend. How about yourself?
The same. I can't wait for it to start and just want to enjoy myself and celebrate a little bit. So I'm happy it's here.
Ah, I hear you. I hear you. Oh, and so excited about this show, which we've been which we've been plotting and kind of low key putting together. For folks who've been following us here on Twitch, and of course, you can follow her as Positive Fandom on Twitch, myself as Lorena Creole on Twitch. We've been doing a weekly watch party of all the episodes from season one of Reacher to kind of get you all primed for this particular show. So I bet you some of you are trying to guess exactly what the show is about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is in a nutshell, honestly, it kind of started because said, "Hey, you have to check out this show, called Reacher." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure." I bring it up in DuckDuckGo, and I'm like, "Oh, this dude's hot. This okay, well, he's hot, but let's see what happens with the show because unfortunately, what Hollywood has been doing for several years is they will get a character who's built like Alan Richson and they'll basically use him as a butt of a joke and basically say he's a toxic male and he's stupid and he's this, that, and the other thing, basically done to diminish male characters. And for me, that's not something that I want to see. I'm used to seeing, very strong male characters, very competent male characters, the type of man where men want to be them and women want to be with them. That's the kind of thing that I like to see, kind of movies that I grew up on. And you can speak to this. That's what I'm used to seeing. I'm not used to seeing this demonization and dismantling of masculinity. So when something like Reacher comes out and you're just like, oh my God, I'm waiting for this to go south and it doesn't, and actually is very positive um, depiction of men, with those traits that some may call, toxic, which turns out not to be toxic in a bad way, but toxic in a good way. What say you, my dear?
I say yes, and I couldn't agree more. For years we've been seeing this trend, as you mentioned, where they're sort of rejecting masculinity. And we don't want to reject masculinity. We want to
No.
embrace it because we love men. And we both think men are wonderful. We value them as human beings. And we're kind of tired of seeing men being pushed around and being told that they're less than, that they don't serve a purpose, that their opinions don't count. We don't believe in that. We
No.
think that they matter just as much as we do. We love seeing them, hearing them, being around them. And most importantly, we also love seeing the wonderful actors who are portraying all these wonderful male roles that we've grown up with, Lorena, and have really just appreciated all our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when I was putting together the intro, I was like, okay, we've only got like 15 seconds. There's no way I can fit all the clips that I want to find. But just going back to the movies that, on television that I would see, and the positive depictions of men, it's just like there was so freaking much, to choose from. And it's like, and it actually feels good because it's just like for some people who don't know and who haven't seen that. So, uh, I'm so excited about this show.
You make such a good point, Lorena, because depending upon which generation that a person may have been born in, they're not going to see a lot of what we grew up seeing on television, even in
No.
advertising. There was a lot to praise men about, and a lot of the things that we have in the beginning of the promo of the show are exactly what we're
Mhm.
talking about, and we're here to celebrate. We're here to celebrate men. As we said, we love you guys.
Mhm.
And, we
Yes.
just want to kind of look at some of the things that we enjoy about men and also, how much they do really mean to us. It's very satisfying to see it on screen and to
Mhm.
talk about some of these things. It makes us happy and brings us a lot of joy. So that's what this is really about.
Yes. Yes. Speaking of bringing joy, Latino Slant, aka Polly. Hey, you doing? Says, hey, I know that voice. Yes, because it is Polly's voice that is on the intro for this. I could not have thought of a more perfect voice for our intro. So thank you so much, Polly, for doing that,
Yes.
because I'm telling you, probably took me 3 times as long to put it together because I kept listening to your voice all the time. Put it together, and I'm just like, yeah, his voice has to come in when Antonio Banderas shows up on screen, and then it folds into where you see Avery Brooks as Captain Cisco. Just, oh my god, it just fit perfectly. But first of all, thank you to the 5 of you out there watching on Twitch. This show is exclusively premiering on Twitch on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, and then of course you'll see the video replay on YouTube on I believe we're going to do it on Sundays at 1 p.m. So
Mhm.
here Twitch, you get to see it live. And then a couple of days later, it's going to be a video premiere on YouTube. And yes, daggone it, wrong widget, and wound up freaking muting myself. Hey, Real Wit, good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, hola, hola,
Hey.
hola, ladies. Oh, so good. Hola, Polly. Hola, Polly. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I loved talking with about putting this show, together. And it's like the more that we talked, the more that we realized that there isn't really a show like this. Like I
Mhm.
found that if like even if you see like some pop culture channels, all that, you don't really have a lot of women, not very many women, who are talking about positive examples of men and actually make it a safe space. I know we borrow on that term, but it is true. A safe space for appreciation, of men, of traditional, somewhat modern, but not a place that makes you embarrassed to be a man unless it's those stuff that even other men are like, okay, that and no bueno, not good, not good. But we are not going to shame you for being who you are at all on this show. This is not a shame zone. There's some comedy stuff, but in general, we're not gonna shame you for being men. I don't think so, Tim Syndrome. Hey, T Rose, Terry Rose,
Hi.
2342. Yeah, the I don't think so, the trope of, like the clueless man, the stupid father, the seems like, the mother knows everything or the female in the relationship knows everything.
And
Yeah.
some of those, very careless, insensitive comments about not caring what a 40-year-old man has to say, no, we
Hmm.
care. We want you. We care about you guys. We love you guys. We certainly,
Yes.
value your opinions. We value what you think. And we certainly value you. So we
Exactly.
certainly don't have that attitude at all. This is completely an approach that Lorena and I have discussed. We feel the same. We value men, and we think that it's important for you to know that. And that's another reason why we wanted to do this show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett were my
Hmm.
heroes. Frontiersmen. Yes.
Right.
Yes. That's another toxic masculine trait. And this is why I'm such a fan of history. When you look in the history of this country, of course, there were some, women who helped with settling and exploring, but the majority of them were men to be able to take those risks and endure certain conditions, in order to pioneer this country. So, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Davy Crockett, and I'm trying to remember who was
Yeah.
the other guy. Oh, I'm trying to
Was
remember.
it?
He went to the Alamo because
Oh,
he said to Congress, "Y'all can go to hell. I'm going to Texas." And I cannot
well,
freaking remember his name now.
all I can think of is Lewis and Clark right now, but yeah, I don't know who that is either.
It's not,
Um,
it wasn't Sam Houston. Dang. Oh, that's going to drive me nuts. Because I heard that in history class. I was like, whoa, what is that for
mhm.
real? And they're like, yes, it's actually real. He said that. Oh, but we are going to get to who our toxic male is going to be for today, of course,
Yes.
for today's show.
Mhm.
And that toxic male, of course, I'm purposely not going to like put his name up here because we all know who he is. For those who do not know, this is Idris Elba.
Yay! Yay! Yay!
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna be so shallow right now. For number one, black British men are hot.
He has dashing good looks.
Ye-
He's very he's got a certain charm and charisma about him. Um, Boy, he is confident, very fit, just absolutely stunning to look at. And the Rainier, I was reading up about him a little bit more, and they
mhm.
were saying that he's been in like 20 of the highest grossing. He's like one of those actors that is on that list of being in films that are some of the highest grossing ever. He's like on that top 20 list. So almost everybody knows who Idris Elba is, but they may not know everything about Idris Elba for sure. And he is just remarkable.
He really is. And I think when I first saw him, I'm almost embarrassed. It was a show that I didn't get to watch because I didn't have that particular cable channel at the time. It's a show called The Wire.
Yes.
Show called The Wire, very critically acclaimed, that he was in. And I didn't even know that he was British until I heard him in an interview and he's talking and I'm like, what? What? It's like my head just like, just swung around. I'm like, oh my God, keep talking. But you're right. He has like this, this swagger and this presence, you know, to him. And not only like in face characters that you can see the way he looks now, but for those who do not know, if you've been hiding under a rock, Idris Elba actually did the voice of Knuckles
Mhm.
in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, it's a huge success.
It is absolutely huge. And if anybody could have done his voice the way that his character is in the game, it was Idris Elba. I mean, it just sounded, amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, in a way, I kind of forgot that it was Idris doing the voice because he was just so just like Knuckles, his persona. and just everything. But that just shows you just how powerful his acting is. He even, it's so funny. He voiced, I think it was no, not a moose, or was it a ram in the Disney cartoon Zootopia,
Yes.
and he was also the seal or sea otter. No, I think he was the seal in Finding Dory.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Like over the past 20 years, he has consistently had a presence on British television and in movies, and even as you said, and not just live action, but animated, and in some video games as well. He's quite a prolific actor.
Very, absolutely
Mhm.
prolific, and
Mhm.
he's one of those where it's like I heard his name, but it's like his face. I think the first time I actually saw like his face
Yeah,
for real, besides The
yeah,
Wire,
yeah.
was when he was in the Thor movies, when he was
Mhm.
Heimdall, which I kind of had issues with the casting, but it was freaking Idris Elba. So I'm only going to complain so much. That's put it like that. I'm just
Well,
it's Idris.
I don't know how you felt, but I wanted a little bit more of Idris in it. I thought he looked beautiful in that
Oh my
film,
God, he
and
did.
and he wore gold. He was in this beautiful gold outfit, and he was kind of like a person who was a guardian, or whatever in some of the scenes. And I just kept looking at him, thinking, "Wow, he did look like a god. He just looked so amazing, and
Hmm.
just had such a wonderful presence about him." And I just loved him in that role too. And it wasn't even like a super long role, but um, he really does make a difference being in a film, having his name, on the list. And he just by that alone makes a big difference in a lot of these films.
It does. Like there was one movie who that I had no plans to flip and see, and totally missed what I was doing here. This is what happens when I look. Anyway, the Suicide Squad. Now that was
Yes.
a movie that I had zero intention of watching. I had seen Suicide Squad. I'd seen that, and
Mhm.
mostly because I liked Margot Robbie as
Yeah, I love her too.
I loved her as Harley Quinn in that. Birds of Prey, hell no. But I liked her in the Suicide Squad movie.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when they came out with the Suicide Squad, I'm like, "Ugh, I like Margot Robbie, but I don't know if I freaking watch this." And then they announced Idris Elba as Bloodsport, and I said,
Mhm.
we'll see. We'll see. So I didn't go to the theater to see the Suicide Squad. I saw it at home on HBO Max. And as soon as his character showed up,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay. I guess I'm in and
Yeah,
and
he was
watching it.
remarkable. I especially liked the relationship he had between his daughter in the film, because it kind of starts off where they have this little bit of tension, and
Hmm.
I remember thinking to myself, of course you have tension with your dad. Like, it's not all smooth sailing. Of course you like get into these arguments with your parents, and I thought that was like one of the first realistic versions I've ever seen of a father and a daughter together when they get into an argument about something. I'm like, finally somebody's being realistic about what really is like. And then they reconcile it at the end with something that's so sweet. And I said, this is fantastic. But he was wonderful as that character throughout the film as well. I just loved him in that.
Yeah, he was great. He was great. I bought him as okay, they called him Bloodshot instead of Deadshot, but I bought the character and bought him, as the reluctant hero. But if it wasn't for the gravity of his acting, number one, I would not have bought that.
No, it needed to have some kind of weight to it, and I think that he had that. He brought that to a character that none of us were expecting to see that with this,
No.
because quite a bit in the story, and I'm not sort of like saying that the screenplay was meant for amusement, but quite a bit of it was a bit amusing. Like it had sort of a light side to it. And the situation that he was presented, especially with his daughter, was not necessarily sort of like a light topic. This was
No.
kind of serious. And you didn't know what was going to happen with this. Things looked very bad for a while. And then at the end, for things to kind of turn around in that, but also for the entire situation to turn around in a movie that had so many comedic moments. It was very cleverly done, and I just loved it.
Yeah, for me, it's like I kind of thought that it was the gore was a little too gratuitous because I was kind of like, okay, I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling this anymore. But that outside of it, yes, I loved watching it. It was a lot of fun. Again, the relationship between him and his his on-screen daughter, but just how he interacted with everyone else, and just his acting just so seamlessly tied everything, together. It was just, again, one of the roles where I didn't the movie, I could kind of take it or leave, but I'd watch it. I'd watch it just to see Idris. So first of all, I kept saying Idris Elba for the longest freaking time until I heard I think it was actually somebody British who said no, it's Idris. It's Idris. So okay, I need help with that. Had never seen that name before, so you're gonna have to help me. But yet no surprise, he was born and raised in London, England.
Mhm.
I'd
And
like to.
and
Oh, go
yes,
ahead.
absolutely. I'm sorry. His
No, no, go
father,
ahead.
it says, was from Sierra Leone, and his mother was Ghanaian. And it's funny because I was trying to figure out like what his background is, because you can't always look at somebody and tell exactly where they're from. But my
Hmm.
mother was like, "Oh, I bet you he's from this country, whatever country," and she didn't pick the two that he was, but she was pretty darn close. And I looked at her, I said, "How did you know that?" And she's like, "Well, he looks like he's from there." So I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, he's really gorgeous." And she's like, "Yeah, he's a very attractive man, a very attractive black British man, so to speak." That's what they call it, if you are black and you are from Britain, they call you black British.
Yes.
Um uh, and what's interesting, honestly, Lorena, is that, while he did acting, he also wanted to be, I think, for a while, like a musician. And I don't even know what had ever happened with that, but it was clear, I think, to anybody who, um, you know, uh, just kind of looks at Idris, just even for 5 seconds,
Hmm.
might say, "Look, I know music is your passion. I know music is your passion, but do you ever want to consider a career in acting?" Anyone who would see him would say this because he just looks so good on screen.
He, when I saw him, it's like one, not really, because when I first heard him talk, and then my brain's trying to pick out like where he's from, and it's like I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, well, he's not West Indian, and then he's talking about living in London. I'm like, oh, okay, this brings back memories because when I would visit London, and I hear some black British dude talk, I'm like, okay, God, you're cute. Okay, all right, keep talking. But it's just like a different swagger, especially with those who are born in London of African immigrant parents. That's just something that I've noticed there. The culture is different. It's different from American, obviously, but I think there's just like more of just a cultural tie that gives like a lot more. How would I say? There's so much more culture that's known and put on, kind of put on display. So it just brings back memories for me. But it makes sense that he went into acting. One, of the way that he looks, and two, the fact that he was classically trained, because he's from that. How would I put that? He's kind of like in that pool of black actors that they can do an American accent well enough that they can be cast as American in addition to
Oh,
British.
yes. Yes, he certainly can. He has no problem doing an American accent or any other accent, actually. He does quite a few and is very prolific at it. And, he's just so versatile when it comes to being able to play different types of roles, Lorena. Like, he plays almost everything.
He was a drug baron in The Wire. That was crazy. I
Mhm.
did not see
Oh,
I did
Luther?
not see Luther on the
Oh my God.
BBC, which I heard, well, it's actually an IMDb that he's actually doing a
Yes.
movie
Yes. Luther
of
was
that.
fantastic. So you have not seen it, Lorena?
I have not seen it. So literally I just found out about it like
Oh my
today
God. Oh my God. You
because let's
will
see.
love it. You
This
will
is the
love
TV
Luther.
series because I love stuff on the BBC. I really
Mhm.
do. I love stuff on the BBC. So that's something I'm definitely gonna have to check out. But yeah, that I didn't see.
Mhm.
Of course, saw him as Heimdall, of course,
Yes.
and then saw the movie Daddy's Little Girls, which I just recently recently saw. And I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember
and I
what
have to
happened in that
say
role.
about that film, Lorena, it is a Tyler Perry production,
Mhm.
isn't it? It is, right? Yes.
Yes, it is a Tyler
Um,
Perry production.
and
Mhm.
by this time, Tyler had made so many films already. Like now, I don't even know he's going to be close to 100 at, I guess maybe at this point. But at that time in 2007, he'd actually made a lot of films by then.
Mhm.
And he got the lead role in this film, and you and I were discussing it. It was at a time when there were all these sort of dating advice for professional women. And these dating coaches would get on and they would say, if you're a single woman and you're a professional woman, but you're looking for someone, you're looking for love, think about looking outside of your professional circle, which meant like date people who are not professionals. And I
Mhm.
kind of had laughed at that because no sooner had that advice been given out to people that we had this film, which actually deals with this, right, Lorena?
Absolutely, absolutely. So with this movie, Daddy's Little Girls, the character that Idris Elba plays he's a mechanic, and he lives in the inner city, and he's trying to raise three young girls that he has. Now, this was something that's very atypical. Usually, you'll see it's that the single mother with the children not looking, we'll say accidentally stumbling into, a romantic relationship. In this case, it's flipped. And the father is someone who's blue collar, and he manages to meet the romantic interest who is a professional black woman. She's a lawyer. And they go through this in the movie of just kind of like the societal, how would you put it? Like the social class thing, because it's kind of like if you're a professional woman, why the heck would you want to date someone who isn't a professional man? It's kind of just like I almost want to say like it's almost like you're how would they say it? It would kind of say like you were slumming it because you were doing that, and they were kind of trying to say that there's a certain thing that you're missing out on
Right.
by overlooking blue collar men, overlooking men who work with their hands. But this movie, it's kind of like it's not about that. It's all about if you love that person and
Yes.
the traits about that person, because we were talking in the background that
Yes,
there's
we
like
do.
it's like when you're a professional woman, and we both are, it's
Yes.
like we'll work with professional men who, not to stereotype, but I will, some of them who are kind of skittish around women just due to, again, things that happen, in our society, making it so,
Mhm.
you're worried if, somebody's going to call HR on you if you say that a woman looks nice today or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
as opposed to where I worked at the time. We would actually go down to the shop floor, just to look, see hot dudes working with like their hands and sweat and stuff like that. And they'll be like, how you doing? You look nice today. So good to see you. It's like it was just like a different mindset, you know.
Yeah, it really, was. And, I think that the you're absolutely right about this film. And of course I had kind of mentioned that, to have Idris Elba be the mechanic, is kind of like this incredibly good looking man is the mechanic. If this was a real life scenario, he wouldn't have any problem finding a woman, right? Because he is so attractive. Like he's pretty much almost the perfect man. He's a great father. He's looking
Hmm.
for love. He's looking for love. He doesn't want to be by himself. He wants to expand the business in the film. There's a lot of
Yes.
very interesting things about it that as a professional woman, you're like, wow, he wants to expand the business. That means he wants to make more money. That's certainly something that I think a lot of people would want to do. And I think that it showed, that he is multidimensional, just like most men are. Um,
Yes.
so, I have to say that the film certainly won me over, but I thought to myself, I wonder if my local mechanic, is like Idris Elba, I kind of thought about that for sure. It made me think, certainly, how lucky Gabrielle Union's character is in this film.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think we were talking about there's a scene where Gabrielle Union's character finally meets his little girls, and after the little girls go to bed and they're kind of like talking in the kitchen, and he's just talking, and Idris just nonchalantly takes his shirt off, and the first thing she does is she's like, and I
Mhm,
noticed I was doing the same thing. And it's just
mhm.
like that's pretty much, it. This guy takes off his shirt. He's someone who's been, working with his hands all day, taking care, of his daughters, you know. It's just like there's something extremely, extremely attractive about that. Like case in point, I always say that, I love going to the mechanic because they all seem to act different when a woman shows up to
Yes,
get your car fixed, and they're just like, yeah,
wonderful,
we're
actually.
gonna yeah, they're like, we're gonna take care of this.
Mhm.
We're gonna handle this. I have like all these oak leaves like stuck in where the windshield wipers were. They took that out while they're
Yeah,
doing the
they
oil
detail the car after they
change.
service it. You're
They're
like, thank you.
detailing it. They're like, I'll hook you up with a discount on that, and we'll check this and we'll check this too. We'll make sure it's working, well for you. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's so nice. You're taking care of me, taking care of my car, providing that service,
Mhm.
that you would like, and wanting to do a good job. That's another thing, you know that ambition, which is another thing that I loved about his character, and another thing that's deemed as toxic is ambition. He wanted to own the shop, because like in the beginning of the movie where he gives Lou Gossett Jr. I love the fact that he was in this movie. That's another toxic bill for another for another show.
Mhm.
Idris gives him this wad of cash. It's just like, oh my God, what is he doing with that? He's telling him that's a down payment for me to buy the garage. And the other female character who she knew because they lived in the same building was working on his car, and she was just like, you need to buy the shop because you actually fix stuff, around here. And you notice just how much he's respected, and you're like rooting for him, like, yes, you need to buy the garage because you're looking, long term. But another thing that he does, and another toxic trait that I really love, Lou Gossett Jr.'s character tells him, hey, there's this job. I had this driver quit on me. He's like, nah, I don't want to drive around, stuck up people. And he's like, well, it pays good. It's kind of like, yeah, I got 3 girls to provide and take care of
Yeah.
because their mother is a drug dealer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's just like, oh, go ahead, my dear.
Yeah, it's sad that he's in that kind of a position. And I thought that it was very thoughtful to put the character in this position, because there are a lot of people who are in positions where not only are they either separated from the significant others, or no, or let's say divorced from their significant others, but sometimes they're in a position where they have to almost care for their ex significant others, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So, after having 3 children with someone, of course you're still going to have somewhat of a relationship with this person. And, oftentimes you may have to make sure that that other person is all right. And we see this happen time and time again. And it's no different in this story where, he's still responsible. And he's always going to be like, this isn't going to go away just because he's with Gabrielle Union, like the rest of his life, he's going to pretty much feel like he needs to make sure that the woman is okay. And I understand that, like, it makes sense. Relationships don't always mean, an end in a relationship doesn't always mean that you stop caring about the person and their welfare. So that's something that's very interesting as well.
Yeah, because he didn't act as if he like loathed their mother. If anything, he was just like, she's not the woman that I fell in love with in high school. He's just like, she's not the same person. So he's kind of just like, I just need her to get her life together and I take care of the girls, to the point where also in the beginning, you see that, his ex-wife's mother is just like, no, you need to take care of these. Like, that's literally her dying wish. It's like, you need to take care of these children because their mother can't, their mother can't do it.
Yeah.
And it's just seeing, that's something you don't see, seeing him, how he fixates, like, these girls are the most important things to him, to the point where that one scene where they come in, yes, I know I'm kind of spoiling this parts of the movie for you, sorry, but it's been out for a long time, but there's reason to this. There's a scene where he wakes up, he hears a door, and I'm like, 3 a.m. Oh, must be Gabrielle Union coming back to say, I'm sorry, I misjudged you. I'm like waiting for that. I'm like, so they can pick up, so she wouldn't be drunk like last time, so they can finally get together. But he opens the door, and it's his daughters. It's his at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you're there, and they're just like, what are you doing here? And they're like, we walked here, we couldn't stay, because they were staying with their mother until this whole custody hearing got worked out. And they're trying to explain, well, how come you're not there? And they're just like, we can't stay there. It's like, how come? Like, we can't stay there. And then they try to explain why. And then it turns out that the boyfriend was beating the little girl. It's like, when you see her back, and I'm like, I'm watching, the Idris and his character, and you can tell he's just like that. You could see, like, in his face that he was being really restrained, and all he wanted to do was comfort his little girls. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, aren't you pissed off? Aren't you angry? I'm just like, you can't tell me this is what you're doing. I mean, I get it, because the girls are so upset, and all you can see in his face is that all he cares about is just his little girls. Like, nothing's gonna happen to you, nothing's gonna happen to you. And then after they go to bed, and he closes the door, and he zips up the hoodie, and he goes outside, and that is when he goes off. That toxic trait of, aggression. You threaten, you hurt my children.
Exactly.
And I couldn't protect them, so I'm mad at myself for that one. But whoever did it and hurt my children are about to freaking pay.
Yeah. And he has to do something, because whoever did that is going to continue that abuse to that child. And, that's completely unacceptable. No man would allow that to happen. We just know that's the truth. And he had to do something. But at the moment that the girls came home, he had to just kind of stay calm and let them know that they're safe now.
Yeah.
And they don't have to worry at this point. It dealt with a lot of issues that, you know, perhaps a good portion of the country is going through right now in the United States. And, you know, it really was I think it's one of his best films. I think it's one of Tyler Perry's best films. He has a lot of good films, in my opinion, but I think this is one of his best. And Idris certainly played the role, you know, in a dignified manner. And, you know, I think it was probably one of Idris's best performances as well.
I would have to agree, because just the range of his acting, and in every situation. I mean, you saw him from, restraining himself when his ex-wife shows up and she's demanding to see her kids, and the kids are screaming because they do not want to be anywhere, you know, near their mother, and he didn't cuss her out or anything. It's just like, you can't, do that, to the point where you see that he is falling in love with Gabrielle, Union. And, to see like that vulnerability where he's not afraid to, admit, yeah, I'm falling for you. You basically told her, yeah, you got to admit there's something going on, right? But you don't want to feel it. It's like, okay, all right, just put me out there, but you see that tenderness, you see that protectiveness for real that comes to the front when the girls show up at 3 in the morning, walking, that they've been walking alone by themselves in that neighborhood there that time of night, to the point where you see how angry he is. And you just know that something bad is gonna happen. And once he starts getting retribution, you're kind of like everybody else in the neighborhood who was pretty much like cheering him up. But you understood that, and they understood. You threatened this man's children. You put your hands on this man's children. So any man, any parent worth their salt is gonna understand why you're pulling this dude out of the car and beating his ass. I mean, it's kind of like, I guess maybe we'll call the police. Maybe.
I don't know whether
Give
the
a
police
couple
could
minutes.
do anything in this situation. And it was a very difficult situation, because if he did call the police, what happens if they would go to the mother's house and discover that she has drugs there? And now he's putting her in a position where she could either be put in prison and then lose any kind of visitation rights, because, I don't think he wanted that scenario to work out. But something had to be done to send a message, just to make sure his children would be safe. This is innocent little kids.
Exactly.
He I just love him in this so much.
I do. I love him in it. I love that it's such a positive depiction of Black men as caring fathers. I mean, men as caring fathers in general, which is why I like the movies like the Adam Project, why I like that, so much. But this here, especially because there's this stereotype out there that, Black men on a whole do not take care of their, of their children. And actually, he actually talks about this in the film.
Yeah.
Like, you see those toxic, I say toxic because it's true, those traits of, protective, aggression, being a traditional father, and, and realizing that he knows that while he has these children as a single father, that ideally he wants someone who he's with to co-parent these children, and knows that there's something about a mother that their children need, but know that what he had before, no, that's just not, that's not going to work.
Absolutely. So as far as I'm concerned, for anybody who's watching this, you absolutely need to watch Idris in this role as the father in Daddy's Little Girls. It really is. I feel like it's his breakout role, but I just think that it shows the range that he has. And he really is such a talented actor. And it's not a surprise that around this time is when, he started to, he's worked continuously, but then, he started to get roles. For example, as I already had mentioned, we mentioned the MCU roles that he had gotten.
Yes.
And we also mentioned that he's in the DCEU. But he's
Mm-hmm.
also in the Alien franchise. Like it's just
Really?
unbelievable. Yeah, he was in Prometheus. He plays the captain of the
Oh, I
ship.
didn't know
Yeah, and he and Charlize Theron's character kind of hook up in the story.
that. I did not know that. There's
Yeah,
some reason I didn't see Prometheus, and
and it
I'm
looked really hot too because he was like, look, you're hanging around me, like, is this going to happen or what? And she goes, my quarters in 10 minutes.
oh
And
wow.
I'm like, of course she does. Have you seen this man?
Who is like who wouldn't with what he looks like? Oh my
He
god.
was just he looked incredible in that, and he was just sitting behind a
Ooh,
command center where
that's
he's kind of flying
interesting.
the ship. And he was
Prometheus.
like, oh, this is bio warfare, like when they
Hmm.
discovered the
And I thought they were going to have a picture of him. I don't even
they
trust it.
might
Okay.
they focused a lot on Fastbinder. There they
Oh,
are,
there we go. There we
there they
go.
are. Okay, look at
Oh,
him.
wow.
It's like I'm going
Mm.
into deep space for 2 years with him. Okay,
Hey.
all right. And
Oh,
he was just
wow.
honest with her, and of course she looks so lovely. And
Hmm.
she kind of parades in there, and she's like talking to him, and he's like, are we going to do this or what? I mean, it was almost that type of language, but maybe a little bit more eloquent than what I'm saying. And I
Hmm.
swear to God, she looks at him and she goes, my quarters in 10 minutes. And I was like, yes. And they
Mm.
added in an encounter in Prometheus. They added in a sexual encounter. We didn't see it, but they added in a sexual encounter with him and Charlize Theron in Prometheus. I mean, they didn't have to add that in, but they did.
I may actually have to check this out now because I didn't know that. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
he's in it. I mean, there's a lot more. He's not in as much of the film, let's say, as some of the other characters, but he does
Hmm.
play an important role because he is the captain of the ship that's flying to the location in the story. So then all
Oh,
of a
okay.
sall now he's in the Alien franchise. He's in the
Oh,
MCU, he's in the DCEU, which are some of the top grossing films, of
yes.
all time. He was in all the Thor films, he was in the Avengers films.
Mhm. He
This is
was he was in I haven't seen Pacific Rim, so I'm going to have to see that because people keep
Mhm,
telling me about it. But
mhm.
now I remember one of the things that I saw him in
Oh,
this
yes.
movie, Beasts of No Nation.
Now,
This
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Lorena, this film, when he started in this film, he actually scared me a little bit. The main character, his role
Mm-hmm.
as this, let's say African warlord. And, he did win a Screen Actors Guild Award, I believe, for his role in this. And I thought he was going to win Academy Award for Best Actor. I think it ended up going to Mark Rylance. I could be wrong for Bridge of Spies, but his performance in this was absolutely spectacular. And honestly,
Mm-hmm.
it's a topic that a lot of people are trying, pretty much don't want to think about, because there's a lot of conflict and turmoil going on in Africa. One person described it as a talented cast offering this is someone else's quote, this is not my quote.
Mm-hmm.
A talented cast offering a sobering, uncompromising, yet still somehow hopeful picture of war's human cost. And the film is about these warlords who, the film is called Beasts of No Nation, and it came out in
Mm-hmm.
2015. And he plays an African warlord who has killed all of the adults, and they kind of take the children and force the children to become soldiers. And they also, unfortunately, sexually assault the children. They do all sorts of things to these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, after this happens, after the war is over, let's say, even now in some nations, it's like, where do you go? What happens to these children? How do you deal with these heinous crimes that have happened? It's stuff that should never be happening. And he has to play the bad guy. And he is terrifying in this thing. Lorena, I was terrified of Idris. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I am so scared right now. But when he went to accept his Screen Actors Guild Award, Lorena,
Mm-hmm.
he made a comment about, he says, they're talking about films about diversity. He's like, well, here is one, and here I am. And we didn't need to go and change anybody else's film, Lorena. Nobody had
No,
to go and change and correct anything. This was a story about African people with African people in it. And it was a true, based on true events. And it was a fantastic, critically acclaimed film. There are stories out there to be told. We don't have to go and change somebody else's vision, Lorena.
not at all. And this movie, I saw it because of the critical acclaim. People could not stop talking about it. And I watched it, and yes, his character scared the crap out of me. When he brought his warlords, his toadies and everything, into that village where not only did they kill the men, the adults, but they had one of the kids basically said, "You need to kill your own mother." And I'm just like, I'm like, I can't believe it. I knew it was true because all the stories that you read in the news and all that, but to see that, and then further in the film, when you see the same person, and they're just like, how can you live with that? And he's just like, if I give in to that, then they win. And I that just hit me so hard. But you're right. These films, there's so many amazing stories out there, so many amazing African stories. And if you don't believe it, there's this industry called Nollywood, okay? Nigerian movies. I'm telling you, that's a good time. Sit
It
and watch them.
is. It
It,
is.
I'm watching this, and you're right. There's so much diversity that's already out there, stories that are out there, stories that people are finding, stories that people can relate to. Again, this is kind of like a little off topic, but one of my favorite Nigerian movies is called The Wedding Party.
Oh, yes.
Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen it, but I've seen the trailer to it, and I want to watch it, and it looks really good.
It is so good. It is so good. I mean, it's a rom-com, Nigerian rom-com, but it doesn't matter. There's stuff that's universal in there that you're just like, "Oh my god, this story is just, it's just flipping amazing." But Idris in this film is he's amazing in it. He's absolutely
I really thought he was going to get
amazing.
the Oscar for this one, and it's okay. I do believe it was Mark Rylance who ended up getting it for Bridge of Spies. Mark Rylance is actually, if not my favorite actor, one of my favorite actors. But
Mhm.
I felt like Idris deserved more credit for this particular role. And you are right, Lorena. It got a lot of attention. It ended up on Netflix, and it was available to anybody. And this was before the pandemic, right, Lorena?
Yes, this
This
was
was a film
before
that
that.
was purchased by Netflix because they wanted to show a film that really had critical acclaim and had a lot of presence. And they're really, this was such a powerful film. I was very impressed that Netflix even did this because of it is kind of a topic that a lot of people don't want to talk about very much. And it's because it's painful. It's very
Mhm.
painful to deal with these situations like this. But boy, what an incredible performance by him and the cast, the children
Yes.
in the story. I don't know how these kids did this. It
I
just, I'm sorry, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
no, I agree. It's such a powerful performance by everyone in the cast. And honestly, if Netflix hadn't have put this movie out, so many people would never have seen it. Or if they'd heard of it, kind of like, okay, well, if I hear about it, where can I actually see it?
Yeah,
So,
it was playing like at the Angelica in New York, and you'd have to, for a limited run. It wasn't
mhm,
at every, AMC or
no.
Regal theaters. It wasn't. It was very specific. It didn't really have an agenda either. And this is something else that I wanted to mention is that a film can talk about, conflict and political issues, but not have an actual agenda. They're asking you to watch this film and come to your own conclusion. They're not trying to sway you to one side or the other. And I thought that was very important. While it might be considered an anti-war film, it might be considered that, What I can say is that, you know, as the observer, you're expected to come to your own conclusion when watching this film. And of course, we can all agree that, you know, cruelty to children is unacceptable. Some of the acts in this film is unacceptable. But at no point do they point the finger at you and tell you that if you approve of this, you're wrong. Like, absolutely not. This is really something that I think is important because it was prior to all of the unusual things that we'd been seeing. And, you know, this really, I thought when we saw stuff like this, Lorena, that's the direction, you know, Hollywood and different studios would be going. And I thought that's where we were going. What did you think at the time?
I kind of thought so too, because you had films like this that were coming out, and considering how well and how critically acclaimed it was, that you would, you know, that you would see more. And actually, you were starting to hear more things about, like, say, films that are, you know, the Nigerian film industry, and seeing more movies like that come out. So it's really disappointing that we've gone from, I'll say, in America, we've gone from telling these unique stories and actively finding stories like this and pulling it into the consciousness. Instead, it's like rehashes and reboots and race swaps and all of that, which is so disappointing and does such a disservice, you know, to the particular storytelling that's going on. I just, yeah, it's very disappointing, and it's not a way that I expected to
Well,
go.
there's one more film that I absolutely have to ask you to talk, that we need to talk about in regards
Mhm.
to Idris, Lorena.
Oh, which one would that be?
It's called The Mountain Between Us.
Now, why does that sound familiar?
Okay. So he made this film in 2017. And you have to forgive me for this.
Okay.
It stars, of course, as you can see, Idris Elba and the lovely Kate Winslet. She looks wonderful in the film, right?
Oh, uh-huh.
And you know, they're at the airport. They're heading to a destination. I can't remember where they're going. You know, she's a photographer. I think he's a doctor in the story. And
Mhm.
they're on this plane, and the plane crashes like in the middle of nowhere on this mountain. And so they're stranded, alone, together. And and I have to tell you something, Lorena. This I'm not quite sure whether this is an adventure film or a romance film, because there certainly was romance going on in this film. Like, there's this very strong, even like looking at this still, Lorena,
Mhm.
still that we're looking at, where Idris and Kate are looking at each other. You can see that they've got chemistry on the screen. Like, it's obvious that
Oh,
there is
yeah.
a kind of, you know, appeal, and only God knows, I can't remember all the details. You know, she might have been saying, well, you think you're so smart, and he's like, well, you think you're so smart, you know, like whatever kind of banter they have going on. But when that plane goes down, survival meant that they had to stick together, and it was tough. They're in they find a cabin, I think, somewhere, and at some
Mhm.
point they have an intimate relationship. Now I'm sorry,
Yes.
it's so good. Sorry. It's so good. Kate Winslet appeared on a morning show talking about this film, and it was all a number of very well-known female journalists who were around her. Very, very professional journalists. Okay, so they're, you
Uh-huh.
know, they never lose. You know, like, they're not going to crack up like I am. These ladies are stoic, and they're going to
Mhm.
stick to what's going on.
Mhm.
But when they heard that she was in this film with Idris Elba, they were like, oh. And Kate Winslet's like, yeah, I was in the film with him. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. We knew what they were thinking in their mind. We knew exactly what they were thinking, because what did she have, like 2 or 3 days where she had to pretty much kiss Idris Elba for like a week, you know, for some of the sex scenes that they had. And I don't even
Uh-huh.
remember, you know, all the details of the sex scenes, but she had to spend a lot of time with Idris. And, you know, it's like, if this lucky woman, this is what I was thinking, that they were saying, wow, she's so lucky she got to spend time with Idris, because he kind of is a very pleasant man. You know, he's easy on the eye. He's talented. So, you know, the performance is going to be great when the film comes
Mhm.
out. But he
Right.
also is incredibly pleasant. And, this is something that shows in the film. Like, the picture of them is like they're kind of looking in different directions because they're both involved with different people. But after this experience, Lorena, their lives are never going to be the same. But,
Right.
She gets stranded with a man who's a doctor, and he's Idris Elba. Like, this is this is a very interesting story. I don't know whether it's based on a true story, Lorena. I have no idea. What I do know is that, you have you seen this?
I have not seen this movie. I heard of it,
Uh-huh.
but I have not had a chance to like watch it. And the more that I look at this, the more that I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna need to sit down and watch it, because in my brain I'm thinking, okay, so crash land with this hot dude. Okay. Okay. This hot dude who he's basically gonna protect me. Okay, cool. And
He
he's a doctor.
he does, Lorena. I mean, it's like, honestly, and Kate looks so beautiful. Like, even in her worst moments, she looks incredible in this film. Okay. So
Mhm.
I'm like, gee, it doesn't take much to make Kate Winslet look good. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
dirt on her face or whatever. I'm like, she kind of still
right.
looks really good. This is very funny. But I think it's because, maybe, the chemistry between them was so strong that
Mhm.
it was like they had a good time on the set, so to speak. It was a positive
Right.
experience. And the other thing, okay, so it is a guilty pleasure. It is, I admit that. I admit it. It's a guilty pleasure, the idea of being stranded with Idris Elba, or let's say the character, in this way. And it was dangerous. There were dangerous moments. They had to overcome, such incredible struggles.
Mhm.
But boy, Lorena.
This kind of reminds me when I look at this. It kind of fits into that primal instinct that I'm not speaking for all women, so please don't send me hate mail. If you do, I'll put it in a circular file. Like the idea of being protected. When you look at the poster of the movie, it's like, okay, she's in this hostile environment with this gorgeous protective dude. I like that. That's something instinctive that appeals to a female audience. Again, that toxic trait of being, being the protector. They're going to watch over you. They're going to make sure, nothing happens to you. If they're going to build a shelter, you're going to be the first person that's going to put it. That sort of thing is attractive, especially to a lot of women. It's like, yeah, and eventually, it'll kind of get into that, romance category, and we can go on from there. But that's something that appeals, you know, to women. It's not like you couldn't cast this same thing with, like, say, God rest his soul, Gilbert Gottfried, and get the same idea. It doesn't, it doesn't work. I look at this and it kind of reminds me of a movie from back in the day, if you've seen it, called Romancing the Stone.
Yes.
Saw that? Where she goes, oh my gosh, and I'm blanking.
I'm sorry, Michael Douglas. Is it Michael Douglas?
Was it Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner,
Turner.
right?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's who it was.
I think so, because
Yeah.
Kathleen Turner's character, it's like her sister was threatened, and she goes to like Colombia, and she's out of her element, and she needs a guide. And of course, not Kirk Douglas, his son, which I'm
Michael
like,
Douglas.
Michael Douglas. Yeah, he's got like the machete and looks like, a dollar discount Indiana Jones. But the whole thing is he basically has to protect her
Yeah.
through the whole entire thing. It kind of reminds me of that when I
Well,
see
the
this.
top of the poster says, Lorena, what if your life depended on a stranger?
Mm, yeah.
Well, they're not strangers after this experience. That's what
Oh,
I'm gonna
I bet not.
can you play a portion of the trailer? Like, can we do that? I mean, not the obviously not the sound, but just you started to do it and I stopped you, I think.
Let me see. I think
Will it do it? I don't want to
I.
get you in trouble.
Oh no, freaking ad. Okay, well, I muted it.
It's all right. It'll end and okay. All right,
Yeah.
here we go.
So we'll play it for about 5 seconds. Let me see. It's just a little bit. Oh my God, he looks so good. He looks so good. I don't think I've ever seen him, but he makes mechanics coveralls look hot.
Yes.
Oh man, that's a talent. Yeah, so that's where
And
she
look at
is.
her. Look at her. She's kind of like, what?
Hey,
What? Yeah, she's like, what?
Because
and he kind of, I think a man could probably look at this and say, yeah, she's a very beautiful woman.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, hello, but they have there's a little tension, like it's playful, but it's kind of like, well, hey, just like you said.
Yeah, kind of like that look. Is that Jeff Bridges?
Yeah.
No, Beau Bridges.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. Okay, Beau Bridges.
So, obviously they're flying. I can't remember where they are flying, but they needed to get a flight. They booked a courier, or what is this? Chartered flight,
yeah.
right?
Oh no, they in a little ass plane. Well,
yeah,
you already know when you're in a tiny plane, you pretty much know what's gonna happen. So they crash land. Oh my gosh. Wow. So I guess that's his significant other. Oh wow. I may have to actually see this one.
Look at this.
Oh, look at him. He's in the snow. Oh, Lord. Okay. All right.
You see, she's in like something and he's pulling her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's a doctor, so he knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say worst case scenario, he knows what to do.
Oh, gosh, she fell through the ice. Oh, no.
A lot of stuff happens. Like this isn't sort of like a 5-minute film. It's like there's a lot that goes on, but there's also something else going on, right? Something beautiful.
Yeah, that thing was just like, oh God, I gotta see what happens.
So those journalists are around Kate Winslet, Lorena, and they're like, so how is it making this film? And I'm like, go on, Kate. Tell them how great it was.
Tell them how good, tell them how nice it was to, like listen to this dude and like touch this dude. And
Yeah, it was challenging. It was so challenging, right. Looks real challenging.
Wow. That
look she gave him, like when she looks up, right?
Uh-huh.
It's that same look that that the other woman gave to Momoa, remember? Where she's like, that, okay, this is a whole another direction altogether. It is a guilty pleasure, I admit, to having seen the film and said, yeah, I love this film.
The Mountain Between Us. Okay.
Thank you, whoever made this film. Thank you, whoever wrote this screenplay, and the casting agents. Thank you so much. That's all I'm going to say.
That looks like another film that doesn't cast men as, as idiots or useless or anything like that. If anything, she is dependent on his competency.
Totally dependent on him. I wouldn't know what to do. That I would be completely helpless. This is, totally dependent on this man. Just for everything. For everything.
Well, there's another movie
yes.
that I saw, and I have to actually thank the Gospel according to Mark with a C for turning me on to this movie, and it is called The Harder They fall.
Oh my
Now, unfortunately, some people were like, oh, well, this is a Black Western. Yes and no. A lot of it is based on around certain historical events that happened. Hey, Kaylee, good seeing you, my dear.
God.
So glad you're here. And thanks to all of you folks watching here with us. This movie, I mean, you have Regina King, and
I
I'm
saw that. Yeah.
forgetting who this guy here who played Cherokee
He's
Bill.
gorgeous too.
He was gorgeous. Everyone in this cast was amazing. But obviously, I mean, seeing Idris Elba as the bad guy, I mean, this was he literally the outlaw, in this film. Just his acting was incredible. Again, even though he's playing a bad guy, unapologetically toxic through all of this. Now, granted, it's the villain traits, but still, nobody's apologizing for being men. And even Regina King's character, she doesn't talk down to. She banters with them on their level.
Oh,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, she banters with them on her level. The women who were in this, because it's the frontier, and it's like it's a different time where women had, not to say they're traditional, but it's kind of true, their strengths, men had their strengths, and they basically combined them together, which is why this particular gang was so infamous and threatening and crazily successful with how they were, hijacking trains and
and this
every. Oh, go ahead, my dear.
this is right. Regina had just won. She's won an Academy Award, right? Like right around this time. Am I incorrect, or is it not her?
I Was it her? I think it was her because this. I think this dropped not too long after One Night in Miami dropped, which she had directed, but she had won it for something. I am drawing a blank, and I'm almost embarrassed that I can't remember what it
No, it's
is.
okay. I just thought that it was interesting that you had an Oscar winner in this film. It's kind of a big deal to get someone who
Mhm.
has won that in any film, actually. And right after she's won it, maybe she actually did the film before she won the award. But
She won. Which one did she win?
yes,
Oscar
she
win. I'm
won
going to
it.
find this in a minute. Best supporting? She won best supporting actress for If Beale Street Could Talk. Oh,
Yes.
that was her nomination. She was nominated.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, looks like she was nominated. Wait, no, no. Yes, she did win for best supporting actress. I hadn't heard of that before, If Beale Street Could Talk, but yes, she did. She did. So she won
And it
she
was
won that.
around this time, right, Lorena? Around
Yes.
2021. So,
Yes.
this is kind of a big deal to have her in the film as well, with them coming right off of this win, which was huge, to have her in the cast. So this is a very unique situation.
Very, very. And this was such, if you love action movies, if you love westerns, if you love ensemble pieces, this was flipping great.
Oh,
This
wow.
film was great. And Idris, oh my God, him as the bad guy. Because you see here, he's got the old school prison, old
Yeah.
school prison outfit on, looking like he should be in Alcatraz. But I'm telling you, there's a scene in this movie where you want to keep hating him. You so want to keep hating him. But
Wow.
just the power of his delivery, it's just like, I really want to freaking hate you. I want to keep hating you because from everything that we have seen you do, have seen you, have this gang, jack trains, how you're terrorizing towns, basically extorting people to pay you. This one dude stepped up to try to challenge you. What did you do? Just went, you put a bullet right in his head in front of his family. I mean, yeah. It is insane because this is I want to say, well, it's set in the West, so you're talking about not too long after the Civil War ended. So it was around Reconstruction. So you
Right.
had a lot of these towns, especially some of them that were populated by the majority of people who were former slaves. So they were trying to basically rebuild their lives, get into a new social structure. You had some of them who were um, building wealth legally and honestly, like say Black Wall Street. You had these towns, and then you had the ones that went to crime syndicate kind of thing. So you saw the clash between those two. But Idris was fascinating in this, just
Hmm.
just how he can play the villain so, oh my God. He can play the villain so well.
I have
And
to watch this.
it is a pivotal role between the way that the scenes are cut. I almost want to say it's Quentin Tarantino-esque
Oh,
with
wow.
how the scenes are cut, and then there's the music that's in there that's also fantastic. But again, just how Idris uses his acting talent to make you, because it takes talent to make you really hate a villain, like to the point where you're just like, oh, when is he gonna buy it? You know? When is he finally gonna buy it? Where you care on an emotional level, whether they live or die.
And it looks good. Like looking at this picture, the promo picture for the cover, and then this the trailer. It looks really good. Like I want to watch this. I certainly do have to watch this film.
This, yeah, you should. It's an amazing film. It's on Netflix, and actually still one of the highest rated on on Netflix. Of course, Bridgerton blew it out the water, but that's that's something completely different. But it did very well when it came out. Still there, still recommended. So yeah, definitely check that out. And this is almost, and I'll actually, what I will say is a lot of period pieces like this. People are starting to gravitate more to, because you're not getting um how was it? You're not getting this whole like stereotypical vision of men. Well, we won't talk about Power of the Dog because that was just freaking ridiculous. That
Well,
obviously had an agenda in it.
it did, but I actually have a kind of interesting approach to it because the film could have just stood alone and just said whatever it wanted to say, but then we
Mhm.
were bombarded by all these sort of interviews about what it was supposed to mean. And I'm thinking to
Mm,
myself, we're supposed to watch the film and figure out what it means to ourselves. I didn't really need all this interference going on. It could have just stood alone and let it stand for what it wants to stand for, and it would have been fine. That film would have been fine. But now, all the craziness associated with it, it didn't even have a chance to present itself. At least that's
uh,
how I think about Power of the Dog.
mhm.
But
Which is a shame, because it used to be that you put your art out there. It's kind of like how I tell people, they're like, "Oh, well, I don't want to see if it's woke." I'm like, "Well, if it is, but it's entertaining,
mhm.
then I can live with that." But just don't preach to me. And there used to be a time when people would put their art out there, and they would allow you, as the audience, trust you enough to make up your own mind. So this is one of those films that does this. It doesn't tell you who's right and who's wrong. It just tells the story of what's happening. You find out who the protagonist is, who basically has his parents slaughtered in front of him by some strange man who rolls into town. And of course, it's like the Western, revenge story. I'm going to find the person or persons responsible for
Mhm.
killing my parents, and it sets them like on this path, for the movie. So it's very cool to watch. Idris has an amazing performance in this, but even more so the ensemble cast around him, because he's very good at, how would I put this? He's very good at, like, while he stands out, he doesn't like upstage everyone around him.
Hmm. Yeah, he can play off of the cast and balance it. A lot of people have said, and as much as I do love Dwayne Johnson, but they have said that The Rock, when he's on the screen, it's like he kind of just takes up the whole screen.
He does, and it's kind of like either people are too in awe of him, or afraid to kind of push back performance wise on him. It's like, I love him to death, but it's kind of like, you're not the only person on screen. I mean, you're the action star, and kind of, and I think that's kind of like why for a while before I dropped out of it, the Fast and the Furious worked so well with Vin Diesel, because he could be there, but he had to play off of like Michelle Rodriguez. I hope I said it. I think that's her. Michelle Rodriguez, and like Paul Walker, and like Ludacris, and everyone else who was in, was in the cast, which is why those seemed to work so good, at least until I stopped I stopped watching, just because I
Yeah.
think I was pretty much done. I think after Paul Walker's unfortunate,
Can we
untimely
see
death.
just a bit of this trailer as well? Because I'm a little curious as to
Oh,
just if we can just a little bit.
Absolutely. If not, I can flip an ad. Flip an ad. Let's see here. This is so cool. Let's see. I'm gonna sound out. So yeah, they're basically on the
Oh wow,
train.
he's like inside of a container, like locked up.
Because
Wow.
because he is such a notorious criminal,
Oh.
so dangerous,
Oh my God.
that they had him locked up on a train, transporting him. And Regina King plays this girl, and had to go and bust him out.
I see. Okay. That is awesome.
So she was basically leading the gang to bust him out.
Right, because no one's going to suspect that she's there for that.
No, not at all. There's a scene in I think it's in here. Oh my God, this scene here, the way this was shot. I mean, they kind of condensed it here, but this scene, the way it was freaking shot, it's one of the best shot montages I have ever seen for action. It is just absolutely incredible. So this is like in the beginning. Let me scrub back a little bit. Now this guy here, he's the protagonist in the film. So he's the one where in the beginning, let's see here, his parents were killed in front of him,
Oh no.
and they left him alive but marked him.
Oh, with that cross.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
With the cross that you see here. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
They actually went in and did that. And so he's basically out looking to find who it is who could murk this guy in a church. in a church. And there she is again. And this guy who played Cherokee Bill. I have to find out who he is.
I think his name is Lakeith Stanfield.
Really? Okay.
I think that's who he is. What role was it?
He was Cherokee Bill.
Okay. Let me just see if that's him, because I think that is him. I'm scrolling. Yes, that's him. That is the actor. His name is Lakeith Stanfield. He's also very good looking.
Oh yeah. And they play that up in here too, that he is, good looking and he's smooth. That's Delroy Lindo. And this is the actress she played Domino.
Oh yeah, she was in Deadpool, right?
Deadpool 2, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she was great. She was great in this too. So that's the whole gang right there.
That's fantastic. It's a big gang.
Huge, huge gang.
There's a lot going on in this film.
It really is. If you're a fan of like westerns, it's so authentic with how they depict the town. It's great. It's great. There's romance that's in here, of course. Of
I
course.
gotta check this out. This looks amazing. This looks so amazing.
It's an awesome, very, very well worth your time. I think people kind of like slept on it. Idris is the actor who's going to basically, has the star power to make you look at this film. But Regina King's in it, of course, star in her own right, Academy Award winner. It is another movie that is diverse with its casting, but they don't knock you over the head with it.
That's right. And they don't have to, because they're not trying to change anybody else's story. They're just
No.
telling you a story.
They're telling you a story based on events that that actually happened.
And there are so many stories like this that have not been told. We don't need to take somebody else's story and change it. We don't do any of that stuff.
None. Well, I'm going to give us a little bit of a guilty pleasure here because some people don't know Idris Elba was actually in a rap video.
Mhm.
So let's see. I hope I shared audio, didn't I? I think people heard audio.
Oh, are you going to play the audio? Can you play the audio?
I'm going to play a little bit of the audio.
Okay.
A little bit of the audio. I think I did this okay. Let me see. I can't believe that's Idris Elba.
Yeah, he wanted to have a rap career early in his life, and
really,
he wanted to be a rap artist. But what's really funny, Lorena, is that he's known internationally as a kind of like a critically acclaimed electronic dance music DJ. And I have actually seen him perform in New York in 2019 at a club. And it was packed with nothing but women, of course.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember I was leaving a little bit earlier that night. As I was walking by, the stairs was right next to the stage. And as I walked up the stairs, he kind of turned and looked at me, and I was like, oh my God, Idris Elba just looked at me. Like it was the most incredible thing ever. But he's also made a documentary about music, in particular about clubbing. And as you know, I'm heavily into, and you may not know this, I'm heavily into electronic dance music, like raving, all that stuff. That's like a huge thing for me. Mm-hmm. And he made a documentary called Idris Elba's How Clubbing Changed the World. He made it in 2012. And it really is true, talking about the founders of electronic dance music, Saunderson and a bunch of guys like that from Detroit, who popularized electronic dance music, where everybody, kind of, you find it everywhere now, but he still tours and still does DJ sets. You can find a lot of his DJ sets of electronic dance music on YouTube. And he still makes appearances. He's huge into music, big time, like a lot. Like I'm not surprised to see him doing something like this. He seems to be able to do everything, Lorena.
Oh my God. When I first heard this on Sirius Radio, and I'm like looking it up, and I'm like, Idris Elba, Shaggy's in this, Nicki Minaj's in this, Busta Rhymes is in this. It's like insane. I love he's on point. Not even knowing anything like about him previously, not finding out that DJing and EDM, it totally makes sense, because it blew my mind at first. I'm like, is this some kind of vanity thing where they just drop him in there and he just kind of shows up?
No, he has a history with music, like for 20 years of it. And, he's well known in the music industry. So, he really is very talented. Like I said, I'm sure whoever, when he got that, grant to study music, someone might have said, you are really good at music, but I think you'd be better as an actor. And he probably was like, what? What do you mean? I don't want to be an actor. I mean, he might have wanted to be an actor, but
Right.
I'm sure right away they saw that he would be perfect as an actor. And yeah, the rest is history, I guess. But he is really talented. He's a lot of fun. He's a lot of energy, especially for a mature man. He's mature now. So, but when I saw him in 2019, he was jamming. It was so fantastic to see him playing a DJ set. And it was just incredible. It really was incredible, Lorena.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I would, oh man. Ooh, I'm so excited. Now I'm gonna have to look up his music catalog too, some of his DJ sets.
Go to YouTube and you'll see he has a ton of stuff on YouTube. It was such a great night. I have to tell you, that place was packed with women, Lorena.
Oh my God, I'm so freaking jealous. I believe it.
It was wonderful. I was just absolutely just so happy that he was going to perform in New York. And, I kind of seen him dabble in a few, like, say recently over the past 5 or 10 years, do some sets in different places. But he and Shock were kind of like going back into their, I guess, music roots or playing, DJ sets that they wanted to play. And it was just absolutely spectacular. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is awesome. So, there's so much stuff about these actors on our show. Dang. Oh, as if this wasn't cool enough. Turns out that Idris is actually working on a new TV project. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this, but apparently it's like a reality show. He takes like these young kids from like challenging backgrounds and introduces them to boxing. Because one thing about Idris that I don't think people know, one of the things that he credits with turning his life around was getting introduced to boxing as a youth. Now, if there's any kind of sport that's classically quote unquote toxic male, it is boxing. And I think a lot of people don't realize the discipline that is involved in being a boxer. It's like, it's not just about, the physical conditioning, it's the mental, the mental conditioning that goes on as well. And for a lot of kids, for a lot of young men, this is why sports are so important. That's like taking aggression and putting it into a productive channel. And Idris talks a lot about this. I'll actually drop this in the video description of this article, where he goes and he talks about, how in his younger years, that he's so grateful for boxing. And apparently this new show is going to be called Fight School.
Wow.
In which several teens and 20-somethings will take, part in an intensive course of boxing training to try and learn, new life skills.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Absolutely amazing. Because he says during his own experience of fighting, there was a level of peace that I was able to achieve. He says boxing requires you to switch off all the noise and focus on the moment, a skill that I believe all people need, especially younger people who need direction.
What an incredible person. And that also explains why he has such a fantastic physical, let's say, his physical conditioning is just extraordinary. I mean, he is very fit. I had no idea that he was even into, look at that.
Oh my God. I got to go through this GQ lookbook. This is like, good God. Wow. But like you were saying, that's like one of the reasons why he has such a conditioned, physique. Boxers are in extremely great shape.
Absolutely. And, we can clearly see that he cares about his fitness level. He's maintained it. Oh, yeah. From day one, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, he
Oh,
was in a Star Trek film. I forgot.
he
He was in a
was.
Star Trek film. Yes, he was in Star Trek Beyond as well. So he was in Aliens, the DCU, the MCU, and in
Wow.
Star Trek. Like all the major IPs that are out there, he
Hmm.
was in all of them. I forgot that. I forgot he was in Star Trek Beyond.
I think I skipped that one. I think I skipped that one. But I would look at, oh my God. He's just he's just so cool. But again, just like we were saying, the fact that he is going to have this show called Fight School, which is going to be on BBC TV. So I don't know if it's going to be eventually on BBC America or how that's going to work, but a reality show geared towards young men so they can learn, not only just learn boxing, but like he said, learn life skills, like life skills that Idris credits with helping him and in his career. So I'm just excited to hear that. Good on you, for doing that.
And
Uh,
and Lorena,
yeah,
boxing is another example of what you and I've been talking about. Young men and women who learn how to defend themselves.
mhm,
It
absolutely.
is, would be considered a very masculine thing. And of course, I think everybody needs to learn how to defend themselves. I think it's a great sport to get into. I think it keeps people in shape, and as he said, it's changed his life, kept him in going in a direction that maybe kept him away from doing certain other things because he
Hmm.
was preparing for the challenge of boxing. It's not just punching a bag. If he got into competitive boxing now, he has a person challenging him in the ring.
Hmm.
I think that is incredibly masculine.
Very.
Yeah. So, you can't you have to be tough to get into that ring. And I like that. I really like that he, was able or did that in the past. That's a very attractive trait in a man in particular for me. And I think a lot of women feel that way. Yeah, he's incredible.
Oh, God, yes. Yes, absolutely. And of course, there's that pride in, a man, especially young men, with how their bodies look and their physique. They're very proud of it. It's something that they worked on. So, absolutely. Oh, well, folks, I think that's going to bring it to this first inaugural toxic male appreciation show. We hope that you all definitely enjoyed hanging out with us. You want to let the folks know what it is that you have coming up and where they can find you?
Well, tomorrow, Lorena, you and I are going to be reviewing a fantastic film with Chris Pine and Thandri Newton called All the Old Knives on my channel on Positive Fandom at 6 p.m. So that's going to be a
Mhm.
fantastic show. So if you guys are watching this, you might want to come over to Positive Fandom and check that out. On Monday nights, you can find me streaming with Lorena also on Toxic Femmes at 8 p.m.
Mhm.
Eastern. Sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm on the 1/6 Scale Man Network, either on Say What or Uncivilized Scoundrels. But Lorena and I also do other shows like this one on Thursday. So also please check those streams out. On Friday afternoons, you can find me on Midnight's Edge with Tom and Andre and Cameron Pasha at 12 in the afternoon. On Friday nights, you can find me on the Post Geek Singularity, which is formerly the Burnett Network, with Robert Meyer
Mhm.
Burnett, streaming on our show Midnight Musings. And on Sunday mornings, you can find me on Positive Fandom's Sunday Brunch, where we talk all the parlay about what's going on in the fandom, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Certainly do join us for the live show. It's a lot of fun and hope to see you guys there.
Absolutely. Is a busy woman. I love it. Oh God, I love it. Of course, she mentioned the shows that we do for myself on my channel. Of course, on Thursday nights, sometimes when I can make it. You can catch me on This Week in BS over on Justin Proper's channel on YouTube. The show starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. On Fridays, I have the Lunch Table Show that I co-host with Fat Steven Seagal. Sometimes we have a guest, sometimes we don't, and we just kick it and talk about various pop culture topics that have come up during the week. Kind of connect with you guys out there in the audience, and of course, we simulcast that on Twitch as well as YouTube. On Saturdays, usually it's on Saturdays at 9 a.m., but instead it's actually going to be Good Friday. I'm going to be out at 11 o'clock a.m. out at the Magic Kingdom, touring around for Easter, looking at cool Easter things and Easter treats, and just generally just strolling, enjoying all the decorations and everything that's going on there at the park. So, folks, please do follow myself and here on Twitch. Also follow us over on YouTube as well. And we will see you next time. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.